12:21 in the PM, and you are listening to WWOZ FM New Orleans. It's 90.7 on the radio dial, WWOZ.org if you're streaming us around the globe. We started that set off with the Neville Brothers doing Voodoo live from the planet Earth. And then we had brand new music from Layla Musselwhite, a new single called Sunflower River Blues. T-Guy did the title track from his album Tell Uncle John. And then we had the Hot 8 Brass Band doing their version of Ghost Town, and they were out at the Treme Gumbo Festival this weekend. And Ghost Town is a specials tune, so it's awesome when you hear Hot 8, because they've also covered Joy Division as well, and they mix different things together to make a cool sound. And my next guest is doing the same thing. I am here with True, and he is the creator and founder of BLERDFEST. True, how are we doing today?
We're good. Thank you for having me back.
And for people who don't know what BLERDFEST is, can you tell them what it is?
Well, a lot of people don't know what a blurred is. Basically, a blurred, it's a portmanteau of black nerd. It specifically references people who are into certain niche interests who also happen to be black.
And when you say niche interests, like science fiction,
well,
is that too big?
Well, it isn't. It includes science fiction, but whereas most people that define the term nerd and most cons that are devoted to nerds tend to have a more narrow view of that term that is focused on an interest in superheroes in the various forms. We are incorporate that, but the black community has more needs than that. So we are thinking of what a nerd is in a much broader context. We are thinking in terms of you can be a tech nerd, you can be a science nerd, you can be an archaeologist nerd, you can be any type of academic nerd. So we're introducing content for kids that is educational and brings in people from a range of different professions to show them that, like, I may not be into superheroes, but I'm still a nerd because, you know, this thing here is my interest and this is how I got into it.
And this 2023, is this the second?
The second year. We started in 2019 with the intention of being an annual event, and COVID came up and told us that was not going to happen. And even leading into 2020, I didn't feel comfortable having a room full of hundreds of people indoors, so we felt it best to wait until 23.
Because I went to the first one, and man, your headlining act was really impressive.
Hannah Beechler is an amazing person.
Right.
She is the first black person and first woman ever to be nominated for an Oscar for production design for the first Black Panther. She won at the same time that Ruth E. Carter, who was also the first black person and also the first woman to be nominated for costume design, she also won. And Hannah Beechler lives here in New Orleans, and when we reached out to her and explained our mission, which is essentially that we're not just trying to entertain people, we're trying to bring in educational and vocational content sort of cloaked under this like fun, shiny, like, look, they're superheroes. But really, like with the kids, we're like, yeah, they're superheroes. But underneath that, we have writing workshops, we have tech workshops, we have things to, we're hoping that people are smarter when they walk out than when they walked in.
And what was the response from the first festival when people got to see Hannah on stage and listen to her story and say, whoa, I can do that?
It was overwhelming. We had a very small turnout the first time. It was about 250 people, but everyone loved it. The kids, a lot of the parents were telling me that the kids, it really had a lasting impact on them, because if you were to ask most people, for example, what jobs are in the film industry, they'd say actor, writer, director, they might think of producer, but that's about it. So to show them people who are behind the scenes creating the comics, creating the movies, creating the TV shows in specific fields that they've never heard of and in which black people are underrepresented, it broadens their expectations about what their future could be. It broadens their perspectives about who they might be able to become, and everyone just loved it.
Because it almost sounds like you're teaching the parents more than the kids, because you're using, you know, today's things that are on the big screen or in music or games or whatever, and that kids know those things just by entertainment, but now you're showing them, hey, here's a way to get a job, and hey, pay attention to what your kids are looking at and watching, because there's a lot here that you can learn from and give to your children.
Right. Actually, you know, one of the exchanges at our first event, there was a panel called "We in There: Black Representation in Nerd Culture," and we had the person who was the global head of anime for Netflix. We had the creator of Brotherman Comics, which is seen as sort of reigniting the black comic scene in the 1990s. We had all of these people, and during the Q&A, this mother spoke and said that she was reluctant to come to the event because, you know, her son begged her to come, and they got there, and she was like, is it going to be worth it? And he convinced her. And after hearing that panel, she said that not only was she glad that she came, but it also changed her perspective on the drawings that her son was into. Like, she thought that his, you know, drawing little anime and things was just like a waste of time. But then seeing black professionals who had made lifelong careers out of doing essentially what her son was doing, it completely changed her perspective on how she saw what her son's interests were.
That is awesome. That is so awesome. So now, what can people expect from BLERDFEST 2023?
Well, we are building upon all of the lessons that we picked up last time around, because all of us are very accomplished and very active in our communities, but none of us had ever done anything like a Comic-Con before. So it's been a learning process, and we are building upon what we did last time. One of my friends from Brooklyn, Dr. Crystal Bob Semple, she started in Brooklyn a summer camp called Camp Half-Blood, which essentially immerses hundreds of kids in this program that's designed to improve their reading comprehension scores, but she cloaks it under mythological gameplay. So they wear costumes, they go out into local parks, they encounter actual mythological beings that she arranges for them to meet. And so essentially it's a reading class, but it's presented to them as just a big fun summer camp, and they come out on the other end better readers and better thinkers. She's done this across the country to thousands of kids, and she has created a writing workshop with a local author named Bernice McFadden, who I also know from Brooklyn. The two of them created a workshop called Every Hero Needs a Monster, and essentially it's a contest and a workshop in which kids write stories, they workshop them at the festival, and then they can win cash prizes, and the winner will have their works published across the country for thousands of other kids.
That's amazing. That's so awesome.
So we have the writing workshop, we have tech workshops, we have a cosplay throwdown, we have a video game tournament, we have table gaming tournament like Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! We have a kids corner, we have a vendor hall, we have special guests, we have all of our panels. We place a special emphasis on filmmaking, because the vocational component for adults is that the TV and film industry is returning to New Orleans. And I think that because most people are unfamiliar with the inner workings of the industry, they don't know about jobs like Rigger or Key Grip or Dolly or Best Boy or things like that. But those are jobs, those are careers, union jobs that are, have good benefits and good pay that most of the black community is unfamiliar with, which is why the black community is underrepresented in those fields. So we'll have panels of filmmakers, for example, where we have people at every level of production, from director and producer to production assistant or costume designer or camera person, so that people can see black people like them making careers for themselves doing these types of jobs.
That's amazing. So they can see it in real time. Like, going back to the reading comprehension, they're learning it, but they're also meeting minotaurs and ogres.
I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, KRS-One called it edutainment.
I've stolen that word many, many times.
Yeah, that's really, like, for the last 30 years, everything that I've done has involved edutainment in some way. Essentially, I think my brain gets bored easily, and I want lots of novel stimulus, and so whenever I'm in a setting, I'm able to recognize a void where I think, like, hey, there could be something cool like right here, and I try and get people like, keyed into that same vision so that they can say, yeah, that would be something cool. And so I put my energies into filling that void with something cool, with the hopes that enough people like co-sign so that it can, continue year after year.
And now we have BLERDFEST.
Yes.
And so when is BLERDFEST taking place?
It is Saturday, April 1st from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. at McDonough 35 College Preparatory High School at 4000 Cadillac Street, New Orleans.
And it says here the 2023 theme is multiverse.
Yes.
So what does that mean for people coming to the festival? Should they dress up, or just kind of think of bigger than just our own universe?
Well, the theme is put out as a way of letting people know what we are centering all the content around, and also if they want to cosplay as something tied into that theme, that would be great. But the multiverse has a particular interest for the Black community because there's so much content and so many characters that have been sort of locked into a particular frame, whether that's male or Caucasian, but it has taken things like Spider-Man into the multiverse, where, okay, well, now Spider-Man can be Black. Peter Parker is white, but in a multiverse, Spider-Man could be Black. Spider-Man could be a woman.
Or a tiny Asian woman with a giant robot spider.
Exactly, or a pig,
Yes.
could be. So the multiverse does have special interest for the Black community. In our contexts, we have a workshop that is populated by writers, and we call it Multiverse, or Multiverses, Creating Worlds with Words. And it's essentially, how do these people who are authors and writers, and they write articles and comic books and poetry, how do they create universes, from scratch using just words? We have another panel that's an actors panel. We have a filmmakers panel, and we have our featured guest. His talk's called Into the Multi-Self. It's Frankie Faison, who has a 50-year acting career, and the question is, how do you create this multiverse of characters that are literally worlds apart, from The Expanse to Baltimore in The Wire? Like, what does that process look like for you as a Black creative who has done nothing but your craft for the last 50 years?
True, this is amazing. It's really great what you're doing. You are filling a void, and I think you're planting seeds that's going to grow an amazing forest.
I hope so.
So once again, this is BLERDFEST 2023. It's taking place April 1st at McDonough 35 High School at 4000 Cadillac Street. It's from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. And do they need to get tickets, or is it?
Tickets can be got at the door, but they're cheaper if you go to the website blerdfestnola.com, BLERDFESTNOLA. There are links at the top of the pages where you can click and buy passes.
Awesome. True, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for having me back.
Just exciting to talk to you about it, and I had a great time last time. I'm looking forward to it this year.
Great, thank you very much.
All right, we're going to get back to the music right now. Let's play a little more brass band. This is Big Six doing Footwork right here on WWOZ FM New Orleans.